It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael. I am your host here this morning. I'm glad that you've joined us, and I see a ton of you out there on our website. I'm assuming you're either listening or watching live. Got Sioux Falls out there. I got San Juan Capistrano, Fort Walton Beach, Columbia, Maryland, I believe. Town and Country. I've got, Chicago area. I've got Maine. I've got Florida, Texas, New Mexico. Glad to see you all out there today. Thank you for those of you that are joining us on Patriot FB as well and on Big Country 99. Glad to hear you guys have gotten together with us this morning. So, I've been covering isolated cases over the last couple of months. The last couple of years, actually. But I think we've reached a point in which we have to recognize the crescendo of a police state completely, totally, and utterly out of control. And, there are a number of websites out there that do a fair job of educating people about it, but I don't know how much traffic they get. I don't know how much information they're able to bring in. What I've decided to do today is to address some of what's going on. And so, basically, we need to shine the disinfecting sunlight on the abuse that is happening every day in our country and alert other fellow Americans, our countrymen, to what is happening and figure out how we can bring this to a halt. We have to stop this slide, ladies and gentlemen, because I got to tell you, it's not isolated incidents. It's not the growth of cameras. It's not the growth of social media that's teaching us about these things. The number of out of control assaults on civilians and innocent individuals, the number of murders by cop have grown so staggeringly high, they are unavoidable. We can no longer ignore the truth that we have a law enforcement in this country that has been militarized and is now preying, and I mean preying, upon the United States of America, the average citizen. Between their lust for a use to put their training to a use, to their lust for blood in many cases, to the desire to boost and bolster their revenue streams by forfeiture and at any cost, by any means necessary, we have become a Nazi police state, ladies and gentlemen, and it is completely and totally out of control. I mean, I'm just going to give you a sampling of some of the stories today. But the truth is, there are literally thousands upon thousands of stories, all in the last year or two, that are so egregious, so outrageous, you would think you were reading science fiction when you hear some of these stories. Case after case after case of murder, abuse, people being shot, people being robbed, literally, at gunpoint by the state. Robbed of their livelihood, their homes, their cars put into forfeiture. Not because they've done something wrong, but because they don't even have to be charged for forfeiture laws to be put into place, to be activated. In the United States of America, we have allowed forfeiture to be the guiding light of law enforcement. Not because it's right, not because they're stopping drug proceeds, merely because law enforcement can add to their treasure trove, quite frankly, of cash and goods. And I got to tell you, it's out of control. There are organizations within law enforcement that are attempting to fight this. You know, you have groups like the CSPOA, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. But, you know, they're a minority. They're a lone voice in the wilderness. Law enforcement across the country has become depraved, savage and vicious. Are there good cops out there? Absolutely. Am I demonizing every individual in law enforcement? No. But I got to tell you, since you guys won't police yourselves, since you won't clean up your own house, you're going to leave us no choice but to do it for you. And in order to accomplish that task, we are going to have to expose you, the dirty, ugly underside of what you're doing in our country. You refuse to police yourselves. You refuse to stop the slaughter, the mayhem, the murder, the abuses of our Fourth Amendment, our Fifth Amendment rights, our First and Second Amendment rights. You won't stop it on your own. You leave us no choice. And it needs to stop. I'm going to give you a sampling of some stories this morning. The four topics that I've chosen are police brutality. Police state brutality is a national epidemic. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not exaggerating with that statement. You know, we talked about this yesterday, and I gave you a website that you could go to called cato.org, cato.org, /raid map. Raid like R-A-I-D, like police raid, map. Gives you the ability to go look at a map and utilize a searchable index. How many law enforcement officers were actually injured or killed? How many civilians were injured and killed? How many of those were innocent? All these different factors, by state, by year, by all these different methodologies. I cannot strongly encourage you enough to go there, and then not just go there, but take the information and share it with others. Send your friends an email link with it and say, man, you guys ought to see this. Don't you understand that the only way that we as a collective group can fight back against this is by collectively putting our efforts together and exposing it for what it is? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you think that this is an exaggeration, go to YouTube and type in police brutality. Go in and type in police video. And watch what is going on. I mean, it is insane. The city of Baltimore just made a settlement with a guy who they beat the tar out of because he had a camera, and he was videoing some police officers who were arresting a number of unruly individuals in front of a pub one night. But, I mean, and I exposed it by showing you the video of it. The cop storms across the street and says, "You're interrupting me." I mean, the cop left the scene to walk across the street to accuse the guy of it. They just settled with him. The Supreme Court has made it very clear. There is no one in a law enforcement position that can say, you don't have a right to videotape me during the process. I mean, when you're a private citizen, you've got the same protections as us. But when you're on duty, the whole idea is that you are a public servant and everything that you do is a public act. And therefore, we're entitled as citizens to see it and know about it and expose it when it happens. But the penalties for doing so, ladies and gentlemen, are often tragic. I got to tell you, our second thing, I'm just going to give you case after case after case after case. I can list them. There's not enough time in today. There's not enough time if I were to broadcast from now till midnight for me to even scrape the surface of this tragedy. And I got to tell you, I am so heartbroken by it because this was the land of the free, the home of the brave. And now it's turned into this land of cowering, fearful people who are literally preyed upon by law enforcement. Our third topic, America has become a Nazi state of tyrants. And this isn't just law enforcement. This is administrative agencies. This is your Congress, your federal executive offices. This is the judges in the judicial system. And our final topic, what can you do to stop the slaughter and the lawlessness? I got to tell you, folks, if we do not acknowledge openly and publicly what's happening and put a stop to this, and in short order, we are soon going to be beyond the point where we can affect a solution. And when that point comes, Americans cannot be held responsible for defending and protecting themselves. You can't sit here and say to me that when individuals defend their home and their properties and their families from rogue police who are, these guys are acting like raping and pillaging Norsemen of old, Vikings. What the heck is happening in our country? They are the outlaws, not the other way around. They're no longer chasing the outlaws. And I'm going to read you something from a cop who will tell you exactly how it's working. In fact, I'm going to read it to you right now, just because we got 10 minutes left. This is from a website called Police State USA. And it's an article by Lieutenant Harry Thomas. Now, Lieutenant Thomas used to be a police officer with and he's retired now, with Cincinnati, Ohio. He's a former member of the board of the National Rifle Association and also the Ohio Gun Collectors Association. He was twice the victim of assassination attempts by his own superiors in his department for his stance in support of gun ownership and against police success. He now has to live in the greater Indianapolis area because, frankly, he probably can't live in Ohio anymore. How to Serve a Warrant, 1972 versus today, by Lieutenant Harry Thomas. The transformation of law enforcement in my lifetime. This past week, I was over on officer.com trying to convince some hot-headed, patriot-hating young cops that the Constitution is actually the law of the land. I failed. One of them refers to open carriers as attention whores, quote unquote. I was denounced as a traitor to law enforcement for insisting that gun owners actually have rights that Leos are legally and morally bound to respect. It got me thinking about the great gulf that now separates the law enforcement profession that I knew as compared to the one that exists today. I never thought I'd be one of those geezers that says, I just don't understand this younger generation today. But the fact is, I am, and I don't. And I offer this retrospective and comparison. How to Serve a Warrant in 1972. Plan A, a standard warrant. 1. The warrant officer at your station gives you a warrant for someone who lives on your beat. It's for an old drug possession beef. The suspect has no criminal history. Ho-hum. 2. You go to the location. You knock on the door. If no one answers, you leave and come back another time. If your man answers the door, you either arrest him or cite him to court. If you know he's there, in other words, TV is on, curtains move as he peeks out the window at you, etc., but he won't answer the door, you call another car to watch the back while you go in the front and get him. If he submits, fine. If he resists you, thump him. Tasers are years in the future, of course. If he goes for a weapon, you shoot him. Fairly simple. No? Plan B. The crime is serious or the suspect is known to be dangerous. 1, bring more cops. 2, bring shotguns. And then he has a sub-note here that says, next to the bring shotguns, the only full autos that your department owns are a row of 1921 Thompson submachine guns with 50-round drum magazines, and strangely enough, a single M3 grease gun that are standing in a rack in the armory at the Criminal Investigation section of the Detective Bureau. The last time that one of them was deployed was in the late 1950s at a late-night stakeout inside a closed Kroger grocery store where a gun battle occurred between stakeout officers and a gang of professional burglars and safecrackers. One of your department's old cigar-chewing detectives from the gangster era used the chopper to fatally ventilate the bad guys. The old chatterguns have never been fired for effect since, and never will be again. You are not qualified on them, and no one in your 1,000-man department who is. If, through some miracle, you were to be qualified on one of the old war horses, the thought of taking one to a warrant service would never even occur to you, and the chances of you being able to sign one out for that purpose would be nil anyway. Cops use alley sweepers, a.k.a. shotguns, not trench brooms. Okay. Now, how to serve a warrant today. 1. The warrant office at your station gives you a warrant for someone who lives on your beat. It's for an old drug possession beef. The suspect has no criminal history. Drug possession. This guy is obviously a degenerate and threatens the very fabric of civilization. There's no time to lose. 2. You and your pals put on black ninja outfits. You put black bags over your heads with little slits for your eyes. Now you can do anything you want, and no one can identify you afterwards. Hey, it worked for the PLO and the IRA, right? You call all of the schools within a 50-mile radius and tell them to go on lockdown. 3. You ride to the scene in an armored personnel carrier. Yes, I said an armored personnel carrier. 4. When you arrive, you jump out and storm the house, bristling with weapons that were, at one time, only used on foreign battlefields to engage implacable enemies of the United States and its interests. Now they're used against this country's civilian population. 5. The family's elderly Labrador, who is now approaching you, tail wagging, is obviously there to guard the drug kingpin's stash and presents a grave danger to law enforcement personnel. Hose him with your M16 or MP5 or whatever squirt gun your agency issues. That way the neighbors will see what a badass you are. 6. Don't knock on the door. That's for sissies. Take it down with a battering ram. Run in and cuss a lot like they do in those cool movies. Prone everybody out on the floor. When the family's other dog gets excited and starts barking, blow him away like you did the other one. Do it in front of the kids. This way they'll learn that the country's laws must be respected. 7. There are lots of news cameras outside because you called them ahead of time and told them to be there. March your prisoner out and look really grim. Now everyone watching the news can see your armored personnel carrier. Yes, I did say armored personnel carrier. And they can see how awesome you are in your ninja outfit. 8. Make sure your department spokesman is there to give an exciting account of your great victory. That way, the pretty girl with way too much hair mousse can do a breaking news story about how you've struck a stunning blow to the international drug trade. Now, there are people who are going to think I'm being facetious here. Well, I'm not. Since the early 80s, the use of SWAT teams in civilian law enforcement has increased about 1,500%. No, those 2 zeros are not a typo. At least 40 completely innocent American citizens have been shot to death by rogue police, either because incompetent law enforcement officials hit the wrong address or because the startled homeowner attempted to defend himself against these masked strangers violently entering their home and they were gunned down. One of them, Katherine Johnson of Atlanta, was 92 years old. I well remember the first time my agency pulled one of those stunts and scared an innocent old lady damn near to death. Our chief did the one thing in his career that I actually admired. He sent down word that if any of our personnel ever again kicked down an innocent citizen's door, that they should send back the search warrant with their badge pinned to it, since they wouldn't be needing it anymore. It never happened again. How did this happen? How did we go in a few short years from a beat cop knocking on a door to a full-scale military assault reminiscent of Iwo Jima over somebody selling somebody else a bag of weed? It's because of the greatest and the biggest failed social experiment in this country's history, the drug war. I was around in the days of yore when the first drug forfeiture program started. If you could prove that a guy's stuff was purchased with the proceeds of drug trafficking, you could take the stuff. It was a great idea, and it hit these guys where they lived. And for a few years, the law chugged along that way. Then, law enforcement administrators started thinking about just how much plunder there really was out there. That thing about proving that the guy's stuff came from drug proceeds was a real drag. They said, hey, we have a great idea. Let's take people's stuff without proving that it came from a drug proceed. And they did. The law was changed. Law enforcement didn't need to convict people of anything. They didn't even have to charge them with anything. They could just take the stuff. The way it was explained to me in training was that the stuff was being treated as a separate entity, independent of its owner. In other words, the guy wasn't being charged with a crime. His car or his house or his cash was being charged with a crime. stuff could now commit crime and be convicted of them. A cop could hold a trial at the side of the road, convict somebody's money of drug trafficking, and then put the money in jail. Agencies scrambled to create drug interdiction units to patrol the expressways, such as I-75 from Florida to Michigan, which runs through my city. Their mandate? Steal money. In my agency, our higher-ups got so addicted to stolen money that there wasn't enough in our city to satisfy them. They cut a deal with the county sheriff and got a team of our guys commissioned as deputy sheriffs. Now they could patrol our expressways outside the county line, even outside the city limits. They're still doing it. Last week I drove into Ohio, and sure enough, there was a Cincinnati police officer just over the state line, nowhere near the city limits, watching for anyone who meets the profile. His mandate? Steal money. The only way the victim can get his money back is to sue the agency and try to prove it didn't come from drug proceeds. So much for due process and the presumption of innocence. Oftentimes, the cost of taking legal action exceeds the amount of money that was taken, so the victim just gives up. This is what agencies count on. Life is good for law enforcement agencies. The only difference between them and the pirates is the absence of an ocean. Highway robbery is back in vogue. Literally. So what do you do with all that dough? No government agency ever returns money to the Treasury. If they have any left at the end of the budget year, they go on a shopping spree, and what do they buy? Toys. SWAT. Now that's the latest fad. Soon, agencies all over the country were buying military hardware that had never before been needed or used in civilian law enforcement, and this was before Congress passed a law allowing the military to give them surplus hardware to the cops. Questions were raised, and SWAT is a legitimate concept and is needed in cases of barricaded persons, hostage situations, etc. But most agencies, even big ones, go for months and sometimes years without experiencing such an event. The toys gather dust. Officials and concerned taxpayers say, why do you need this stuff? No need, create a need. So that's why things that used to be handled in a low-key, non-confrontational way by street-savvy beat cops now require SWAT intervention, including routine service of warrants for insignificant and nonviolent offenses. Are we better off? Well, I'll let you decide. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lieutenant Harry Thomas. His article is up on Police State USA. It's How to Serve a Warrant. It's 1972 versus today. I got to tell you, folks, this is indicative of everything that is happening and everything that is wrong with America. We have law enforcement at this point that utilizes and abuses loopholes within the law to seize personal property, charge individuals with drug crimes, and seize their personal belongings, and not actually ever even have to charge them to keep their stuff. Then it's up to you to file a lawsuit to get it all back, if you have the money to hire an attorney, etc., etc. We're going to talk a lot more about this, and I'm going to give you some instances in our next segment. We're going to take a quick break right now. Stick with me. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. You can also find everything that we do up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/America's Voice Now and youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We'll be back in just a minute. These are not isolated incidents. We are talking here about a wholesale level of abuse that is so dangerous at this point. I mean, it's almost impossible for us to look at this and act nonchalant, cavalier, unconcerned. I mean, the situation is out of control. And it's getting worse by the day. I gave you a link the other day to cato.org, cato.org/raid map. And by going there, you can actually drop down on the left list. It's botched police raid categories. And the options are raid on an innocent suspect, death or injury of a police officer, death of a nonviolent offender, death of an innocent, other examples of paramilitary police excess, and unnecessary raids on doctors and sick people. Then you can pick the state, you can pick the year. There's a whole bunch of other variants to it. But when you click on the idea or the segment called Death of an Innocent, the map is peppered, and I mean peppered, with examples. I mean, we're talking 40, 50, 60 examples here. I mean, guys, when we talk about death of a nonviolent offender, there's probably another 30 or so here. When we talk about raid on an innocent suspect, the number is almost obliterates the map. The number of pushpins almost covers the map. What you have to realize is these are not isolated incidents. And it's getting worse because police are taking their cue from the feds. Yesterday, I put up an article about Homeland Security and how they're exercising this. They're doing an exercise where they are targeting, quote, free Americans against socialist tyranny. That's the name of the mythical enemy that they're using in this training exercise, and it's a joint training episode between DHS and FEMA, and the information was leaked to someone in Oath Keepers, and they exposed it and gave it to InfoWars, and they have written up this article about it. You ought to be reading this because the components of this thing revolves around an effort to counter online dissent. Online dissent. And notice how they couch this thing. Online dissent by a group called Free Americans Against Socialist Tyranny, which is disgruntled at the imposition of martial law after an earthquake in Alaska. That's the scene they've said. Now, the document is intended for, and this is their quote, U.S. Department of Homeland Security trusted agents only, and is, quote, disseminated only on a need-to-know basis. The truth of the thing here is that what they're doing, folks, with these kinds of mythical enemies, and we've seen many of these before, where either DHS or state agencies or FEMA have created these scenarios where they look at organizations that are merely individuals who are interested in their constitutional rights as the enemy. And, you know, in previous studies, in previous reviews, they have characterized Americans who are, quote, suspicious of centralized federal authority. Yeah, can you believe that kind of language? Suspicious of centralized federal authority, and, here's another one, reverent of individual liberty. And if you believe either of those two things, you are an extreme right-wing terrorist. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the words out of the mouth of your government. And we're not talking about, you know, some lone cop who drinks too much on a Friday. This is DHS and FEMA. The same people who are training and flooding military gear into the hands of local police departments. The documentation on this stuff is exhaustive. I mean, if you don't see it, it's because you don't want to see it. I got to tell you, there's another aspect to this that is very troubling. And you've heard me talk about this before. And that is the advent of FEMA and the DHS going to churches and speaking to pastors and getting them to join up with them. And I got to tell you, you know, they are creating these programs in which pastors and religious representatives are basically being trained to be police enforcers on their own congregations and people within their community. And their job is to go to their congregations in a period of unrest and assist the government by teaching their congregations to obey the orders of government in the event of a declaration of martial law. And if they tell you to turn over your weapons, you are to immediately turn over any property or firearms into seizure. And if they tell you to relocate, you're supposed to get up like a good little puppy and follow. The truth of the fact is, folks, that look, they wouldn't be going and creating these clergy programs unless they had a need to believe that this was actually happening or going to happen in the near future. And all of the signs point to the fact that we are literally inundated with people in the military and people in our law enforcement agencies, not only state and local but federal, who believe that we are the enemy. There is a case that I posted up this morning about an Albuquerque guy who was camping on some property. He's homeless. And the cops went up there, fired on this guy, and killed him. The guy went to turn his back, and they shot him 6 times. They're standing by their decision to shoot and kill the 38-year-old homeless guy. And when you hear what their chief says in an effort to attempt to explain this away, it is unconscionable. I mean, I don't know how the guy goes home and sleeps or kisses his family and has the audacity to not commit suicide for this act. I'm telling you right now, these people are murderers, flat out murderers. They threw a when you watch the video, they say Boyd was arguing with police for more than 3 hours on Sunday in the foothills after officers went to talk to him about illegally camping in open space. Just leave him alone. Why do you have to bother him? And why do you have to spend 3 hours trying to... You see, here's the problem. It wasn't that they were upset about the fact that the guy's camping. They were just ultimately ticked off because the guy spent 3 hours of their time giving them grief, and they finally said, you know what, we've had enough of this. Pop, pop, pop. They threw a flash grenade at him, and then the guy went and pulled two knives at that point because and they sent the dog after him. You know, the truth is, if you watch the entire video, there's a number of them out there, including a video from an attorney in the area who says this was clearly murder. The cops put themselves in harm's way by running up to him to be within a 10-foot radius of him. The truth is, the number of incidents that are going on like this, ladies and gentlemen, is outrageous. I've given you another example. Oklahoma cop shoots and kills the family dog. And here's was his comment. It was awesome. An Oklahoma police officer shot and killed the family's dog and later laughed about it to an animal control unit individual. This woman from Ardmore comes home, Sarah Brown, reportedly arrived home to news that her family's pit bull, Callie, was dead. When the owner, Sarah, got there, the officer said, quote, "We shot your dog. She's dead." According to multiple sources, Ardmore Police Sergeant Bryce Woolley responded to a call regarding a dog that had escaped and was wandering the neighborhood. "I'm not waiting for animal control," said Woolley, as he grabbed his shotgun to confront the pooch. Sergeant Woolley, who works the day shift patrol in Ardmore, shot the dog, killing it immediately. She had done nothing to provoke the officer, says a change petition at change.org, which has been signed by over 2,900 individuals. Here's what the cop said, bragging to the animal control cop. He said, Did you see her collar fly off when I shot her? That was awesome. Really? Really? Let me read it to you again so you get it. Did you see her collar fly off when I shot her? Man, that was awesome. The animal control guy responds, and here's what he says. We'll just write in the report that it tried to attack you and others in the neighborhood. Whoops. That's the cover-up. That's the conspiracy. Both of them should be imprisoned. I'm not even a dog lover. I know a lot of my listeners are. You guys are going to be outraged. The dog wasn't doing anything. It was just walking around in the neighborhood. This guy wasn't interested in catching the dog. He just wanted to go hunting in a community, in a neighborhood, and prove his manhood by taking a shotgun and blowing this dog's neck out. Woolley, this cop, Sergeant Woolley, I might add, has a checkered past with the department. His name last year appeared in a complaint lodged by one of his own fellow officers who claimed that he suffered, quote, intentional infliction of emotional distress at the hands of the department itself. Woolley, last year, was specifically named in a complaint by an Ardmore citizen who accused him of multiple violations, including conducting a warrantless entry and a search of this guy's home. Here's what he said. Blank you, B. What do you think about this? I hope you enjoyed jail, B. I've finally got you on something, and you're going back to prison. That's what he told the woman. Back in 2000, Woolley, who at the time worked for the Tishomingo Police Department, shot and killed a 36-year-old guy named Jeff Baxter, who he claimed had attacked him. Facts came out in the lawsuit, and Bryce Woolley's account of the murder didn't correspond with the dash cam footage. The city of Tishomingo settled that lawsuit in the murder of Jeff Baxter, and that came out of an article at the Free Thought Project. During the lawsuit proceedings, it was discovered that Officer Bryce Woolley, failed multiple psychological exams required to be a police officer. At some point, Woolley was allowed to join the ranks. So I got to ask you, I'm sitting there, there's a dozen pictures of this dog lovingly laying next to a baby. Hanging out with the kids and the family's kids. Obviously, this dog was not a danger to the community or anybody else. But, this thing about killing dogs, and I know a lot of cops, and I hear them bragging about it all the time. They make it, like it's... I've heard them bragging about it many, many times, and they make it out like it's some kind of a thing, like, man, that dog came at me, I just blew him away. It's bragging rights is what it is. Now, I got to tell you, folks, this stuff that is going on in our country is so egregious, so abusive, so violative, and it's not limited just to local police. Although I could give you 100 examples of what's going on right here with these cases. I mean, we're talking about unbelievable incidents and numbers of incidents in which people are killed and murdered. I mean, you can click on this map and read about the death of an innocent person on this Cato.org raid map. And you can literally, go in and find the example, click on the dot, and it'll pop it open. Death of an innocent in Kansas, Willie Hurd. Police in Kansas conduct a 1:30 a.m. raid on the home of 46-year-old Willie Hurd. Police say they announced themselves, though Hurd's daughter, who was home at the time, told the Topeka Journal, all I heard them say was, get down, freeze. Hurd, the victim, awoke and met officers in his bedroom with a .22 caliber rifle, where one officer opened fire and shot him dead. The search warrant was for crack cocaine and related paraphernalia. Police found only the burnt remnants of an herb that couldn't be tested. If it had been marijuana, it would have been barely enough for 2 cigarettes. Prosecutors declined to press charges against the police who conducted the raid. In 2001, Hurd's family won a $3.5 million settlement for Miami County in the cities of Osawatomie and Paola. The lawsuit contends that, it just goes on and on and on. You can click on any one of these links and read of another egregious death of an innocent person. Now we're going to talk about, and I'm going to give you this in 9 minutes because that's what I've got left on this segment. Now I'm going to expose something that's going to just blow your brains out, because this is one that is completely out of control. Child Protective Services in California, in California, they busted this guy. He was the grandfather and living in his grandson's house. And you know what? I think I'm going to hold off until the next segment on this one, because this one's completely out of control, and it's going to take a few minutes to get through it. I want you to hear the audio and video of this, because this is so out of control. They charged the guy with the grandparent with this weed, and then they made the husband and the wife, who had a 5-year-old. They took the 5-year-old out of the house, put him into a flea-infested. Then they told the guy, unless he goes to NA and drug treatment, and even though he passed a test that shows he didn't have any drugs in his system, nor his wife. And then when he videotaped the statement from the CPS person telling him, listen, don't worry about it, just go along with the program. It doesn't matter if you're really a drug user. You want to look good in front of the judge to get your kid back. I mean, this is so egregious. Then when they found out he had filmed the person, because he put the video up on YouTube, they called up and said, no more visits with your kid unless they're supervised. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is persecution on a level which is incomprehensible to the average person. But if you believe that this is some kind of fantasy or something, wait until you hear this. All right, let me cover a couple more, and then I'll come back to this one. Here's another one. Now, if you want to be able to fly now, TSA will now pre-screen you. But in order to pre-screen you, they want to go through the following invasive screening procedures. They look at your, and this is out of the New York Times, your private employment information, your vehicle registrations, your travel history, your property ownership records, your physical characteristics, tax identification numbers, past travel itinerary, law enforcement information, intelligence information about you from presumably the NSA, FBI, etc., your passport numbers, your frequent flyer information, and other identifiers linked to DHS databases. Wait a second. Are you trying to tell me that in order to get on an airplane and fly nowadays, this is what you've got to go through? TSA, before allowing people to travel, is performing unwarranted checks of a wide variety of personal documents, going further than ever before into the lives of innocent passengers. As expected, Americans will roll over for the new intrusions and accept that they are necessary to protect the homeland. The new screening procedures are more exhaustive than a federal background check. The TSA will now be dramatically expanding their reach into the lives of every passenger and scouring all of the following documents. Quote, I think the best way to look at it is as a pre-crime assessment every time you fly. That's Edward Hasbrook to the New York Times. Hasbrook is a consultant to the Identity Project, one of the groups that oppose the pre-screening initiatives. The default will be the highest, most intrusive level of search, and anything less will be conditioned on providing additional information in some fashion. What gives the TSA this authority? The Constitution doesn't even provide for the TSA's existence. As I've stated repeatedly, none of these agencies have authority or right to life. None. There's only two, Border Patrol and Commerce. You've heard me say it 100 times. Every administrative agency that exists outside of those two is operating outside the boundaries in the law. The Constitution never allows them to live, and any authority delegated to them by Congress is an act of treason because Congress was never given that authority in the first place. In fact, the Constitution ensures that the federal government will not perform these kinds of searches without probable cause or a warrant. That's why we have something called the the Fourth Amendment, ladies and gentlemen. Every day, these agencies do these warrantless searches on travelers. I got to tell you, if you owe taxes, is that a prohibition or a reason to stop you from being able to fly? Well, let me tell you what they're doing. If the TSA does this background check on you, and it includes private employment information, vehicle registrations, travel history, property ownership records, physical characteristics, tax ID numbers, past travel itinerary, law enforcement information, intelligence information, passport numbers, frequent flyer information, and identifiers linked to DHS databases. So get this. Going forward, if you owe taxes and during their background check the TSA finds that out, they'll be reporting their findings to, quote, debt collection agencies for the purposes of debt collection. You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. The TSA is going to take your information and they're going to give it over to a private company for the purposes of debt collection, like as if it's their job to turn you over to a civilian, non-governmental organization for the collection of debt that you may or may not owe. It gets worse. The point of this is that they want you to be intimidated. The alternative to that is that if you travel frequently, you're going to be left with no choice but to join the TSA's pre-check program and become what they call a trusted traveler. Now, under the pre-check trusted traveler program, you have to willingly submit to biometric fingerprint scans into an FBI database. You have to submit to a criminal background check, and you have to pay the TSA $85 for the luxury of this. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if this is what it's going to take to fly, I won't fly. And if I were you, I would call every airline you've ever flown on, every airline where you got a frequent flyer miles account, and I would say, I don't even care if you're going to. You know, I was going to fly, but I read this article, and I'm going to email it to you. And the reason I'm not going to fly anymore is because you are not standing up to protect my rights as a free traveling American citizen. If you want to stay in business, airline A, B, or C, then you're going to have to do something to protect me because I'm too small. I'm one guy. But you have a fleet of lawyers the size of the New York Giants, so put them on this case and get the government to back off. Is this what we're subjected to? You either travel after paying a fee to be abused, to have all of your life exposed to a bunch of guys that are hired off the back of pizza boxes. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if this stuff isn't pissing you off, go back to sleep, wake up in your tidy little dream fantasy world, and it won't be long before you get a rap on your door that tells you to go line up for the train cars. I'm telling you right now, this is inexcusable, unconscionable, and every American should say, we've had enough, we're sitting it out, we're done, you can do whatever you want, but I'm not going to work, I'm not paying taxes, I'm going to shut my business down, I'm going to lay off all my employees until you guys quit. America, you're either going to fight this now while you can do it free of bloodshed, or you're going to wait. And at some point in the future, it's going to be too late for you to do anything but spill blood. We'll be back in just a minute. I got to tell you, anybody who watches this and doesn't do something to take action, get creative, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're unwilling to do something, then you are a major part of the problem because you're too cowering and frightened to do something. I don't care. Write an article. Get your own radio show. But do something.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
You know what, America? I gotta tell you something. I'm getting tired of sitting here exposing this stuff day in and day out, and no one cares. And it's gonna get to a point shortly at which I'm gonna say, I'm wasting my time here, and I'm not gonna bother to do this anymore. Because I've really reached the point where I can no longer sit by and watch the abuses go on in this nation while America pretends that it doesn't matter. and if America just wants to be left alone until they come with a gun to your head, that's fine. But I got to tell you, standing out here in the wilderness screaming from the top of my lungs to educate and awaken you and the millions around you, while no one seems to really care and no one's willing to take action to stop this, is just ridiculous. I'm putting my own life at risk, and nobody cares. Nobody seems to give a damn. The TSA is going to make you go through the most invasive, abusive searches. And by the way, this is tied to Real ID, if you're not aware of it. If you don't have, by 2017, if you don't have a Real ID with a chip that identifies everything about you, you will not be allowed to board a plane. They don't care about background checks at that point. You're either going to have the little chip in your card or you won't fly. Now, what are you going to do with an entire state of residents like the state of Missouri that has barred the use of that chip in legislation that says Real ID can't be implemented here in Missouri? How are you going to get around that, TSA? How are you going to get around that, federal government? How are you going to get around that, United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, Southwest? What are you going to say? You don't have the right card, you can't fly? What are you going to do because you don't have the right card and you find you cannot get on the plane to go do your business trip, to go see your mother who's dying, to go visit your kid in a hospital because he was injured in an automobile accident in a foreign state and you got to get over there? What are you going to do? You're going to walk off with your head hung low and get in a car and drive 1,800 miles because you can't get there in 4 hours. Now you got to wait 36 hours to go see your family member because you don't have the chip. This article in the New York Times ought to explain it all to you. But I got to tell you, folks, if America doesn't stand up shortly, and I mean like sooner rather than later, I see no point in putting my own safety and my own family in harm's way for a bunch of people that don't want to be saved. Apparently, they don't. In New York, they've been using the Easy Pass toll tag system. You know, the one that you stick up on the windshield so you don't have to stop at every toll booth when you just drive through? Well, guess what? Turns out New York traffic agencies have been using those to monitor motorists across the state. Not just for your tolls. They've been connecting your toll tags and your travel even when you're not anywhere near a toll booth. So they've got readers all over the place that say, well, we're not going to smack him for a toll, but we're just going to monitor that he was here. He passed here. He passed here. He passed here. New York City Department of Transportation and Transcom, a traffic management agency, admit, wait till you hear this, that for the last 20 years, they have been using antennas to connect the Easy Pass toll tags in vehicles driving across more than 3,000 miles of public non-toll roads, not just in New York, but in neighboring states as well. Now, I grew up in New Jersey. I used to have an Easy Pass because when you go through the bridge, and of course nobody at the time, this is when they first came out with it. I haven't lived there in 15 years, but no one knew at the time that these things could be that these things would be transmitting in the way that they are. The truth is, they're already tracked. They don't need GPS. All you got to do is drive by some place where the antenna exists and it reads and snaps, oh, there goes Mike. Quote, "We're being watched in ways that I think none of us would have imagined," said Donna Lieberman, the executive director of the New York Civil Liberties Union. "It's happening without any public scrutiny, without any decision that's consistent with checks and balances." A privacy advocate discovered the massive size of the program after he created a device that alerted him every time his toll tag was connected to an antenna. This guy says, "I took my Easy Pass and I figured out how it could let me know when it was transmitting. Then I reverse engineered the Easy Pass protocol radio. Even when he drove down roads nowhere near a toll booth, his device went off multiple times. He realized that the agencies were purposely installing toll tag readers hidden under regular traffic signs to track drivers as they drove through. Not surprisingly, the Easy Pass term and condition states nothing about the tracking program, which was not previously announced to the public until this guy exposed it. New Yorkers have a right to know what the purpose is, whether it's improper, and the right to insist that our elected officials rein in this practice. Ladies and gentlemen, stop demanding that the beatings, or stop begging your slave master for the beatings to stop. Go in there, take these people from Easy Pass, put them on trial, and then put them in prison. That's from Lieberman. It gets better, though. The elected officials across the country are doing exactly the opposite of backing off. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is now pushing for all vehicles sold in the U.S., anything new, to be equipped with a vehicle-to-vehicle communication system known as V2V. Basically, what this says is that it would allow them to talk to each other through a GPS data under the guise of accident prevention. And every car is a repeater for every other car. So even if you're not within range of one of their towers, if you're in range of another car, each car is just forwarding off and repeating the signal around and around and around and around and around. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't get more 1984 than this crap. I don't understand why people refuse to stand up and stop this. All right, I'm going to get onto this story that I started to talk about in the last segment. This family had their 5-year-old taken from them. The Child Protective Services wants to suppress this video evidence, and so now they're punishing and persecuting the family. This guy is a veteran of Iraq, and his family has been torn apart. His 5-year-old put into foster care, and he's done absolutely nothing because his grandfather got caught with some weed, and his grandfather lives in his house. This is insane. CPS won't take children from the parents from parents who are obviously got railroad tracks up and down the inside of their arm, and this guy's innocent, but they're going to persecute him because he fought back. I got to tell you, if this story doesn't blow your doors off, Scott and Sarah Rolick, the parents of Stevie, a 5-year-old, were raided because their grandfather, who resides with them, was caught selling drugs miles away from the house. Police found a small amount of the grandfather's contraband, and they did not arrest Scott or Sarah with any crime. They didn't charge him with anything because it was the grandfather's. Clearly, the grandfather no longer resides in the house. He's been removed. 5 days later, California Child Protective Services came in with the police. To prove Scott and Sarah were drug-free, they agreed voluntarily to take a drug test at the police station. They both passed with flying colors and were released. To their horror, CPS comes back anyway and takes their 5-year-old, and they put the 5-year-old in an abusive foster home. The CPS worker, Christy Byrne, lied in the report, in her written report, claiming Scott and Sarah were under arrest and had been charged with being under the influence of a narcotic in order to snatch the kid. This, ladies and gentlemen, is flippin' kidnapping. Scott and Sarah's home has been described as, quote, the playground of the neighborhood, where other parents allow their children to play. The foster home, on the other hand, that's holding their 5-year-old daughter, has all the toys wrapped in plastic baggies because of lice infestations and tick infestations and fleas. And older kids who bully Stevie in their aggressive behaviors are a daily routine. Here's the problem. This guy went and videotaped what they were doing to him when he went to a meeting with these scumbags at CPS. And when you hear, I wish I could show you this videotape, but I can't because our system is not capable of it. Wait till you hear this videotape.
Ride your bike, Stevie.
Okay, I got to caution you. There's some language in this, and since this is radio, I'm going to have to try to mute it when it happens. But actually, let me skip past this section. There's a guy screaming there to get in a door. He's one of the people who lives at this foster home where this guy's kid is being kept. And I can't play it for you because it's full of foul language, and this goes off on regular radio, and I don't want to have to sit here and edit for an hour afterwards. But basically, Scott and Stevie's parents were raided, and they essentially went into a meeting with this person from CPS, and CPS told him that basically what he had to do in order to be able to get his kid back was, after he'd taken this drug test, he had to go to NA and AA meetings, and that it didn't matter whether or not he was a drug user. This is what the court wanted, and that the only way, and you should hear this woman talk. I mean, it's just incredible. Here it is.
And what are your perceptions of what you need? Basically, what do you need to do in order to get Stevie back to you?
You know, I need to first find out why they wrote so many lies in here, and I have proof to, back all that up. Straight from going from the police station, or coming from my house to the police station and testing clean.
So basically it's showing that the report is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then something else that was mentioned in the court orders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, here it comes. This is a court order stating that he must do the following things. Now, he's clearly got them already in a lie, because they wrote in a written report that he had been arrested for drug use and failed the drug test, and he's got documented proof that he hasn't failed the test. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Was Narcotics Anonymous meetings or AA meetings?
No, I'm not going to go to
I'm just telling you what's being asked of you. It's your choice to do or not. It's better to just do it and suck it up and look.
It's better to just do it and suck it up. Listen to this. Listen to this woman tell this guy. I'm so incensed when I hear this. I mean, I'm beyond infuriated.
Better to just do it and suck it up and look good in court than not doing it.
Look good in court.
I don't have time to go to take. I'm not going to go to no alcohol or whatever it is, narcotics. No.
So, basically, you would also be asked to do drug treatment and parenting. It's something, I'll mail it to you in the mail.
So now he has to do drug treatment and parenting classes as well. The guy's been accused of nothing. He's guilty of nothing. He's an Iraq veteran. He's passed the test. He voluntarily took a drug test. They've stolen his kid. I'd be at war with these people. Take my kid. I'm telling you right now, every American citizen should be completely insane over this issue. And this is not isolated, ladies and gentlemen. This is happening all over the country. These child protective services, they're doing this kind of stuff. You heard about the situation, I think it was in Massachusetts or Boston, with that 15-year-old daughter that they took from this other family. What part of police state don't you get?
Again,
I understand.
If you don't
standard
do it,
procedure like everything else is.
Yeah. If you don't do it, you don't do it. But it's better to suck it up than not do it, because again, it's going to make you look bad in court.
No, that just make me look like I'm a drug user, and I'm not. So.
Like I said, it's better for you to do it than not do it. And I don't know
why
if you
would
want me to
I?
the information right now, or
Why would I do that if I'm not a drug user?
Because it makes you look better in court. You want
because
your daughter
it makes
back.
you,
Wouldn't that?
because it makes you look better in court. You see, this girl isn't interested in justice. She is only interested in giving this guy an advice. And I mean, I get it. This is the standard mantra you hear from monsters, right? This is exactly what monsters tell you. Don't worry about it. Just let me eat you, and I'll make it so painless that you don't have to worry about it. I mean, that's the argument you're being given. If you want to get your kid, shut up and go along with the program. Wait until you hear what happens, and wait until you hear the next segment, because this one's going to blow you away. When he didn't suck it up, watch what happens.
Because it makes you look better in court. You want your daughter back.
Wouldn't that be like saying that, hi, I'm a drug user, I need help? No. That would.
Not in our eyes.
Okay. So, he refused to go and get the drug treatment, and refused to join AA or NA or whatever the heck it was. And meanwhile, they have a court date, by the way, April 2nd, okay? And so here's what it is. We're going to do something to help this guy right now, because we have an opportunity to do something positive that can actually affect this guy's case. And what we're going to do is we're going to contact these people to make sure that, one, California Protective Services, if you want to call it that they understand that America won't stand and tolerate this crap anymore. Christy Byrne, she's the CPS worker who lied in the report to get this kid taken away. Here's her phone number, 805-654-3444. I'm going to give it to you again, 805-654-3444. Now, here's the worker on the video that told him to just suck it up and go along with the program. Her name is Jennifer Hockenabel. 805-654-5289. That's 805-654-5289. The goal of this, ladies and gentlemen, is to call these people up and let them know that we, America, are watching them, and we are watching them in a massive way. I mean, their phones should be so jammed that the phone should be literally sitting on their desk smoking. Now, wait till you hear this. This is the segment where the guy records the conversation on his cell phone, and since he posted this first video of him talking to this CPS agent and representative who told him to just suck it up, watch this.
Hello?
Hi, I'm trying to reach Mr. William Rolick.
Yes, this is him.
Hi, Mr. Rolick. This is Carmen Franco. I'm a supervisor with Children and Family Services.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm actually Jennifer Hockenabel supervisor.
Oh, okay.
There's just a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to let you know who I am, and if you had any questions, you're more than free to ask me, and I can try to help you.
Okay.
But I also wanted to call you in regards to the visit that was scheduled for today with Stevie, that is going to be canceled because visits with Stevie now at Casa Pacifica have to be supervised.
All right, so they've canceled a visit with his daughter, and they've told him going forward, not only is this visit canceled, but all future visits have to be supervised. Wait till you hear the reasoning in this monster's voice. Wait till you hear it. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if this woman isn't charged criminally with kidnapping or accessory to kidnapping, I give up on America. I give up on a whole lot of you. Every one of you in California should be storming this person's office. You should take this kid back by force and return it to the parents.
Well, how could they go from being unsupervised to supervised?
Well, they were actually monitored, which means that there is a level of supervision. But they are going to supervise now because of the videotaping of the children that are there and posting them online, as well as the illegal videotaping of Jennifer during an interview and posting that online.
I didn't post anything.
We have a post on YouTube that has a video of Jennifer's interview with you, as well as children at Casa Pacifica being videotaped. And that is a confidential foster location, and there are other children that are there. So, again, that was an illegal act.
We videotape there all the time, and they said it's okay.
I'm sorry?
We videotape there all the time. They never said anything.
What I understand is there was no knowledge that videotaping was happening.
I was knowledgeable of it.
Other children weren't knowledgeable of it. They were being videotaped without their knowledge.
No,
As well as Jennifer was videotaped without her knowledge.
our children were knowledgeable of being videotaped.
Okay, I'm also explaining to you, sir, that Jennifer was also videotaped without her knowledge.
That's not illegal.
So, there's a posting online with other children at a confidential foster location, as well as Jennifer.
But that's not illegal to
do it without other people's knowledge. It is, sir.
No, it's not. As long as one party knows that they're being videotaped, that's me. I'm the party. It's not illegal.
The other parties did not know that they are being videotaped, and that is illegal.
No. If there's two people in a conversation, as long as one party knows they're being videotaped, that's legal. Now, if I was to videotape two parties separately from me, and without their knowledge and recording them, that's illegal.
Okay, sir. Well, our county council has been involved in this, and we were told that it is illegal. So I'm going to go off of what they're saying to me. That's as far as I know.
Could I speak with your supervisor?
I am a supervisor, yes.
Could I speak with your supervisor?
His is with Tim Myers.
Is that your supervisor?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Do you have any other questions?
Could I speak with your supervisor, please?
Oh, you can call the front desk. I can't transfer you from my phone, but I can give you the front desk number.
Okay, and you're canceling my visit with my daughter today?
Yes, because the issue is that the visit has to be supervised, and there's no spots for supervision.
Well,
today.
when is the next spot for supervision?
Well, you would have to call in and check in on that.
Who do I call for that?
You would call Casa Pacifica. So you would contact Casa at 445-7800 and ask to speak to intake and say that you'd like to have a supervised, or you'd like to have a visit with your child, and that they are supervised. They only have a certain amount of slots during the day.
So you're telling me that my visits are now supervised because of videotape?
Of illegal videotaping, sir.
No, legal videotaping. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying that our attorney stated that it was illegal videotaping, and the visits are supervised now.
Can I have your attorney's numbers, please?
I will give you my supervisor's number, and then your attorney has the other attorney's numbers. So I would contact your attorney.
Would you mind if I recorded this conversation over again?
No. No, I don't want it to be recorded.
Why?
Because I'm saying right now that I don't want it to be recorded.
Well,
And that you're more than welcome to contact your attorney.
I would like you to tell me what you just said on a recording, please.
No.
Why not?
Sir, I'm not going to go into the conversation with you in a circle.
All right, we're getting wrapped off here. I got to tell you, folks, there's only another minute or so left of it. This goes... look, here's the deal. You have the right to call these people. Carmen Franco, that's the woman who was just on the phone, 805-654-3444. That's 805-654-3444. And let her know what you think of her. Christy Byrne, who's the one who lied on the report, you can get a hold of her also. Her number is 805-654-3444 also. This is Ventura, California, Child Protective Services. Every American should be flipping out. All right, I got to tell you, folks, I'm running out of patience with my own country here, because I see literally 100 million Americans who won't do anything to preserve and protect and defend the littlest among us. A 5-year-old child stolen from our parents. And you see, it's not the fact that they're doing this. It's the fact that they think they have the right to do it, and since there's no pushback from citizens, they just go ahead and do it whenever they want. Did you hear the arrogance of that woman in the last segment? I mean, what part of abuse don't you folks get? For the record, and I've talked about this before, the guy who was in New Mexico this poor guy, he got pulled over in New Mexico, and the cops told him they thought he was clenching his buttocks, and so they took him to a hospital. The first hospital said, that's unethical. We're not going to do that. And so they said, okay. They loaded him in the police car and took him to another hospital. And here's what they did. They brought him into this hospital, and the first thing they did was x-ray him in his abdominal area. Now, they x-rayed him, and they said, well, apparently there's nothing there from the x-rays perspective. But that wasn't good enough. The next thing they did was they did a rectal exam with their fingers. This was a doctor who did this. No narcotics were found. Then they performed a second exam utilizing their fingers. No narcotics found. Then they used an enema, and they forced him to defecate in front of doctors and police officers, and then he had to watch as the doctors went through his stool. No narcotics found. Then they penetrated him with another enema because they weren't satisfied, and they made him go again. And this time he had to watch again while they went through his stool. Nothing found. Item 6, they went in and they used an enema for a third time. Again, he's forced to defecate in front of these doctors and police officers, and again, he's forced to watch them go through it. No narcotics found. Then they're not satisfied. They x-ray him again. Nope, nothing there. Then 8. That's not good enough. They prepare him for surgery. They sedate him, and they perform a colonoscopy with a scope with a camera. They insert it, and they go all the way up through his colon and his large intestine, and guess what? No narcotics found. Ladies and gentlemen, if that was your brother, your sister, your son, your mother, your wife, there wouldn't be a planet in the universe that these people could hide from you. What you have to recognize, America, is that the time is up and it is over for you to sit on the fence any longer. You can no longer sit on the side and say, this doesn't really matter. I mean, this is going to it's going to sort itself out. It's not going to sort itself out. And here's the deal. You're either going to take action and you're going to do something about it, either openly or clandestinely or legally or some other method or manner, or I got to tell you, it's to the point where I feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like the average person who watches this, and I look at the total number of YouTube views, and it sickens me. Because I put myself on the line here talking about things that, I mean, I hear everybody who watches these things says, boy, I wish I could say that. I wish I had. Well, what do you think I'm doing? I get emails from people all the time. Aren't you afraid to do that? Yes, of course I'm afraid. Yes, I'm afraid my door will get kicked in. Yes, I'm afraid my wife or I will get pulled over on the side of the road and abused or charged or set up or whatever. That's the price. Why aren't you willing to take it? Why aren't you willing to take it? Ladies and gentlemen, we've allowed this to get so far out of control at this stage in the game that I cannot understand for the life of me. I mean, I understand fear. I get that. I understand not wanting to be a target and saying, well, I got a family to protect. So do I. I've been doing this for years. Apparently, it just doesn't make a difference. Apparently, there's not enough of you out there who care. There are some loyal folks who listen to this program every day. There are loyal people that log on or check this stuff all the time. There are people who I know in their own way they're doing what they can. But what I'm seeing here is, a few thousand people? And you've got a nation who just doesn't give a damn. I got to tell you, I'm getting to the point where I don't care about them. Because this is not something I do because I seek to aggrandize myself. I've got some kind of an ego thing. Trust me, I would love to never be in front of this camera again. It costs me money to do this program. I don't make any money at it. I don't sell a darn thing. But I got to tell you, folks, either you're going to rally or you're going to have to rally yourselves, because I can't tolerate much more of this. And I don't understand why you're willing to. You can sit there and you can watch Fox News and you can be faked out left and right all day long. You can sit there and watch CNN and you can be entertained by crap about Flight 370 endlessly with speculation about nonsensical drivel. You can sit there and watch your favorite little sitcom. But the truth of the matter is, while you're doing that, there are people who are actively plotting your demise. And you are oblivious to it. I mean, totally, completely oblivious to the fact that there are people actively out there attempting to terminate your existence if you choose to fight back. If you want to go along like a good little puppy and you're done and you do what you're told, is just with a mere rap on the nose with a newspaper, then they'll let you. But if you decide that you're going to push back, balk, fight, your life ain't worth a plug nickel. These people will figure out a way to get to you. And believe me, if they want you, there ain't nothing you can do to get away from it. But I'm telling you right now, if these people took my kid, I'd have that kid back. If I had to go live in the woods, I'd have that kid back. I'm telling you, this is insanity. And the fact that it's happening, and we're all helpless, allegedly, to solve it, is all the more reason for your clear and present ownership of weaponry. Because I'm telling you right now, every person in California, every citizen, period, end of argument, bar none, should be rallying around that office with weapons drawn, saying, you either send those kids out or don't try to leave the building. This is insanity. You steal a kid from parents based on a lie that you, as a person in a position of authority, have. And then you're going to penalize and persecute. I mean biblical persecution. We're going to get you persecution. Because he has the courage to record and videotape your people during the commission of your crime. Folks, I mean, what else is there to say? What else is there to say? Go watch it yourself. Don't take my word for this stuff. Go watch it yourself. But I got to tell you, I don't see how our country can continue to go on like this. I don't call for violent action on anybody's part. I don't believe that that's the right solution. I believe in massive, peaceful civil disobedience. I've said it a zillion times. Every citizen should just say, we're done. That's it. No more worky. We're not going to go to work. You want to collect our taxes? Okay, good. We can't stop you from collecting the taxes. But what we can say is none of us are going to go to work. I know our employer is going to be hurt by that. But you know what? We cannot participate as a community of citizens any longer. That's it. We're not going to buy gas. We're not going to buy food. We're not going to buy iPads. We're not going to buy furniture. We're done. Shut the country down. Meanwhile, you march on your state and your federal capitals and you say, either you send out the monsters, the Frankensteins inside there, and you turn them over to us so that we can dishonorably discharge them, or we're not leaving until you do. Those are the options. It's not open for debate. America, the alternative is you can sit around on your hands and wait until they come for you. And then there won't be anybody left to speak out on your behalf. Because you've sat around and said, well, I'm afraid I can't give up my job. I'll lose my house. I'll lose my car. They'll come and take it. You see, if every one of us got 20 people around us to commit, and they got 20 people around them to commit, it wouldn't be long before you would have a vast segment of the population that would say, you know what, we're all on strike. We're on strike, period. We're not going to work. We're not going to do any of your nonsense. We're not going to send you any taxes. We're not going to pay any taxes. We're not going to pay the school taxes. We're not going to pay property taxes. We're not paying personal property taxes. You're not going to get any sales tax because we're not buying anything. We're not paying federal taxes because we're not going to work, and therefore there's no tax revenue to send to you. And our employer's not going to have any tax revenue to send to you because when we stop working, well, he can't sell anything, so therefore there's a problem. The truth is, America, that is about, at this stage in the game, the only way that we're ever going to resolve this. If you think 2014 and taking the Senate back from Dirty Harry Reid is going to resolve the problem, when you look at the Republican Party and they are the same exact tyrannical monster, the same scars, the same bullet, the same electrodes in the neck as the last Frankenstein, what more do you want? What other proof do you have to have? Does it have to be your family member taken? Does it have to be your child stolen from you? Does it have to be your kid going to jail for a crime he didn't commit? Does it have to be your daughter murdered because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time and had the unmitigated gall to hold up a video camera and try to record a couple of cops beating the snot out of somebody else? I mean, is that what we've become? Because frankly, if that's the best that America has to offer, a bunch of us who sit around and look away because we're ashamed and afraid, then I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to know you. That's the truth. If that's the America we've got, if that's the best that we can muster, a bunch of scared sheep that suddenly find an interesting pebble to focus all of our attention on when some scumbag in authority speaks in a harsh tone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a country worthy of the name America. This is not the United States of America. This is millions of cowards living together, unwilling to throw off their oppressors by peaceful means. Hello? I cannot express to you the level of frustration and the level of anger that I feel about how many Americans have done absolutely nothing to accomplish any level of task associated with trying to take this country and put it on a track and on a level that is commensurate with what we all grew up thinking we lived in. You didn't grow up thinking this was the America we were going to live in. You didn't grow up terrified of the police, breaking out in a sweat when you just see one pull up behind you. He don't even have to flip the lights anymore, ladies and gentlemen. All he's got to do is pull up behind you in traffic. And suddenly you're swerving. Not because you've had too much to drink, not because you just smoked a joint, because you're nervous. You're terrified. Is that a way to live? Is that a way to live? The cops won't police themselves. They don't care. They're all in on it. And those that aren't physically in on it are covering for those that are. These people in CPS use the police like their own personal mercenary army. Go get them kids. And the cops march off and say, okay, here we go. The courts, they play right along. I mean, what judge wouldn't look at this guy's record and say, clearly he didn't fail the drug test. He happened to have someone who lived in his house who was selling drugs miles away from the home. The person no longer lives there. Give him his kid! But no, that's not what they're doing. They're trying to figure out how to get CPS to have even greater custody of this kid. Meanwhile, all the guy does is videotape and audio tape the conversations he's having with these tyrants, and suddenly he's the bad guy. He's committed an illegal act. Illegal how? Why? Because he needs to expose crime? You see, I don't understand how anyone can sit here and justify the criminal activity on behalf of government by saying that because you've done something like videotape, that your crime exceeds their crime of kidnapping and your exposure of it. Hello, America, what's wrong with you? You know what? There's 7 minutes and 25 seconds left in this segment, and I don't even want to finish it. If you want to be a sheep that daily walks in for the shearing, you can do that. But I got to tell you, there's a class of us in this country, and many of you who are watching this right now, you know who you are. There's a class of us in this country that have had enough. There's a class of us in this country that are not going to sit here and watch tyranny being perpetrated on our nation forever and ever and ever. We're not going to watch innocent people be murdered. We're not going to watch a guy in Connecticut who's a recovering alcoholic have his gun seized by the Connecticut police, utilizing this law they've passed because they say he's depressed. He's depressed. That's a reason to go rob him of his Second Amendment, violate his First Amendment, Second, Fourth. New York has been for 20 years monitoring everybody's traffic. What part of this don't you get, folks? The DOJ says, we don't have a conflict of interest. We're investigating ourselves on the DOJ's Tea Party issue and the IRS. You got a choice. Right now, the choice is this. Massive peaceful civil disobedience, and I mean on a stunning way. I'm talking about a national strike. Not a strike where you have to go and parade somewhere. The first things first, 2 weeks where nobody goes to work. 2 weeks. Shut the country down. Shut it down. When they know we're serious, then you show up in D.C. Then you show up in your state capital. And you say, here's the way this is going to work. You're either all relieved of duty, or we will forcibly remove you and we will lock you in prison. You are dishonorably discharged. You will never hold public office in any way, shape, or form again. Frankly, I would rather have that and the anarchy that ensues than continue down this path. Because at least then, and, you know, at least then, we have an opportunity to step up to the plate and protect and defend our country. But right now, the way we're going, we're just melting. We're like wax in a pot. We're just melting away. And I, for one, have had enough. So you can either participate and you can begin to take some action by yourself, solo, completely alone, with friends, with family, with others, or not. I mean, but here's the deal, folks. We're done. We're finished. We're done. This country is no longer a free country. It is no longer a republic. It is now a banana police state, and the tyrants are in charge. That's the truth. That's the long and the short of it. I can give you mountains of evidence that will prove the point. You don't even need me to. You know it's there. You've seen it yourself in many cases. And those of you that have not taken the time to go do the due diligence to resolve the problem, then that's your problem. You're guilty of failing to defend and protect the United States of America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Whether you've taken an oath as a member of law enforcement or the military or not, you took an oath because you've been benefiting from the magnificent results of this republic, which you're allowing to disappear and be stolen from us. And not just us, but our children. If you think things are bad now, what are they going to be like in 10 years? I mean, we've gotten this way in what, 13, 15 years? If you think things are bad now, what are they going to be like in 5, 10, 20? What are they going to be like when your daughter, who's now 12, is graduating college, if she'll ever even get to college? I'm so angry with America. Not the nation. I expect tyrants to do what tyrants do. I'm angry with the civilian population for failing, for being bought off so dagnab cheap. For being bought off so cheaply, so shamelessly. It's disgusting. And I got to tell you, if that's the best that we can come up with, if this is the best that we can muster, if this is the best thing that we can put forward as a nation, then we deserve what we get. We deserve the enslavement, the imprisonment that is coming our way. It's already here. It's not coming. I keep hearing people say, we're gonna slip into We're there. It's done. It's done. It was done quietly in the middle of the night. There was no vote on it. It just did. It's already well underway. It's been going on for 25 years. Now it's just gotten to the point where you can't pretend it's not happening anymore. All right, I'm going to wrap this for the day because I can't take it anymore. But I got to tell you, America, the time for sitting idly on your hands and waiting for somebody to ride up on a white horse and save your sorry, sad carcass is over. There are no knights. There's only you. There is only you. You can email me directly if you'd like. Mike@americasvoicenow.org. But I got to tell you, unless you got something positive to say about today's topic, don't do anything at all. And I mean, you better have a plan of action. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. All right. We'll see you tomorrow.